The question came out of nowhere soft, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. "Do you want to follow me?" Froze. It didn't sound like a command. It sounded like an invitation. Choice. The kind that makes your heart race and your thoughts go quiet all at once. Somewhere deep down, I knew that if I said yes, nothing would ever be the same again. The day was quiet. Almost too quiet. The world around me felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. I walked down an empty road that stretched endlessly into a soft gray mist. There was no sun, no clear sky, only a dull light that made everything look half live. My footsteps echoed louder than they should have, each one sounding like a heartbeat I couldn't control. Then, from the distance, I heard a voice. Calm, low, but somehow familiar. "Do you want to follow me?" I turned, but no one was there. The road behind me was as empty as the one ahead. The wind brushed against my face, carrying that same voice again, clearer this time. "Do you want to follow me?" My chest tightened. Who was asking? Where would this lead? I had no answers, only the weight of the question pressing deeper into my thoughts. It wasn't a question about walking or moving. It felt like a question about life, about everything I'd run from. The mist began to shift, forming a faint outline of a figure ahead. No face, no details, just a shape, standing still, waiting. I felt a pull in my chest, the kind you feel when something inside you recognizes what the eyes can't see. My first instinct was to turn back, but something about that voice, it didn't sound dangerous. It sounded patient, like it had been waiting a long time for me to finally hear it. I took one step forward. The gravel crunched under my shoe, echoing into the silence. Then another step, and another. Each one felt heavier than the last, but I couldn't stop. The figure didn't move, it only stood there, as if my steps were the answer it was waiting for. The world around me changed as I walked. The fog thickened, swallowing everything except the road beneath my feet. My thoughts started to blur, memories, regrets, promises I'd never kept, all mixing together in the silence. Every step forward felt like peeling away a piece of who I was, piece by piece, until I didn't know what was left. The voice spoke again, this time softer, almost like it was inside my head. "You don't have to understand. Just follow." Oh. My heart pounded. My mind screamed for logic, for reason, but my feet kept moving. It wasn't courage. It wasn't faith. It was something smaller, something quieter. Need to see where this road lead. At that moment, the figure turned slightly, and though I couldn't see its face, I felt a strange peace. Like, maybe for the first time in a long while, I wasn't lost anymore. The voice didn't ask again. It didn't need to. It lingered in the air, curling around my thoughts like smoke that refused to fade. "Do you want to follow me?" The question echoed inside me, steady and calm, while everything else, the noise, the fear, the confusion, fell silent. The figure stood at a distance, still faceless, still waiting. It wasn't moving toward me, but somehow it felt closer with every breath I took. The space between us wasn't made of distance, it was made of doubt. My heart beat against my ribs, reminding me I was still here, still real. Yet something deep within whispered, "What if this isn't about where you go, but who you become?" I wanted to ask who it was. I wanted to demand answers. But every time I opened my mouth, only the wind replied. It whistled through the emptiness, soft and cold, brushing past my skin like an unseen hand, urging me forward. The figure tilted its head, a slow, almost human motion. It didn't speak, yet I could feel the question return stronger this time. Not spoken aloud, but pulsing through the air, straight into me. "Do you want to follow me?" It wasn't a challenge. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. And invitations can be refused. That thought gave me a strange kind of power. For the first time, I realized this wasn't about being chosen. It was about choosing. I looked down at my hands, noticing how they trembled. I wasn't afraid of what stood before me. I was afraid of what it might awaken inside me. Because following meant leaving something behind: my comfort, my excuses, the person I pretended to be. Maybe that's why so many never take that first step. It's easier to stay lost when you know the map by heart. The figure slowly extended an arm. Palm open, not demanding, just waiting. The gesture was simple, but it carried a weight heavier than any word. I felt a pull not from outside, but from within. A quiet force that whispered, "You've already started walking." Behind me, the world seemed to fade. The road, the noise, the safety of what I knew, it all dimmed like a dying light. Ahead, the mist glowed faintly, as if something beyond it was alive. Breathing, waiting. I took another step, then another, until the air felt thick and electric. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of my footsteps. For a moment, I wondered if I was still walking or being pulled by something greater than myself. Then the figure spoke again, not with a voice. I felt it in my bones. "Don't look for me. Just walk with me." It was then I understood this wasn't about finding someone else. This was about finding myself, and so, without another word, I followed. The road began to change. The mist that once felt calm now swirled faster, like it had come alive. The air grew colder, heavier, and with every step, something inside me started to twist. It wasn't fear exactly, it was something deeper. Like the sound of breaking glass somewhere far away, but somehow inside my chest, memories began to flicker around me, soft at first, then sharp. A room filled with laughter that had long turned to silence. Faces I once loved, fading like smoke. Promises I never kept, echoing louder than the wind. The path beneath me rippled, bending under the weight of my past. I wanted to stop, to turn back, but the moment I looked over my shoulder, everything behind me was gone, swallowed by darkness. The figure was still ahead, moving slowly, never looking back. But the distance between us never changed. No matter how many steps I took, I couldn't get closer. It was as if the space between us was built out of everything I refused to face. "Why can't I reach you?" I whispered. My voice cracked. The words didn't travel. They fell flat, absorbed by the mist. Then I heard the whispers. Dozens of them. Soft, relentless, familiar. They sounded like me that doubted, that hesitated, that never believed I was enough. "You can't follow. You don't belong. You'll fail again." Each word cut through me like glass. I covered my ears, but the voices grew louder, circling me, laughing softly. I dropped to my knees, my hands pressing against the cold ground. The earth pulsed, beating with the rhythm of my own panic. I shouted into the fog, "Stop!" And for a second, everything did. No sound, no wind, just silence. Then, one voice, calm, patient, rose above the rest. "They're not your enemies. They're your echoes." I lifted my head. The figure was closer now, standing still. I realized then the whispers weren't trying to stop me. They were the parts of me begging to be understood. My doubts, my regrets, my old selves, all shouting for closure. Tears fell without warning. The kind that don't come from sadness, but from release. I let the voices speak, each one fading a little more as I listened. The weight on my chest began to lift. Slowly, the noise softened, until there was only one voice left, mine. And for the first time, it didn't sound afraid. It sounded ready. The figure turned slightly, as if sensing the change. The mist began to thin, light bleeding through from somewhere far ahead. My breath steadied. My hands stopped shaking. The struggle wasn't gone. It had just changed shape. It was no longer something I had to fight. It was something I had to understand. I stood up. The path stretched forward again, waiting. The figure spoke once more, quietly, almost tenderly. "You can't follow me by running from yourself." And this time, I didn't flinch. I took a deep breath and whispered back, "Then I'll walk with my shadows too." And I stepped forward into the light that was beginning to break through the fog. The mist began to part, not all at once, but slowly, like a curtain being drawn back by invisible hands. The world that revealed itself wasn't brighter, just clearer. The air felt lighter, as if the silence itself was breathing with me. My footsteps, once heavy and uncertain, now found rhythm. Each one landed softer than the last, not because the ground had changed, but because I had. The figure walked ahead, still faceless but no longer distant. It didn't lead the way like before, it moved beside me, matching my pace, step for step. There was no voice now, no echo, just presence. A quiet, steady kind of peace that filled the spaces where fear used to live. I noticed the road beneath my feet wasn't made of stone anymore. It shimmered faintly, like light trapped in water, bending with every step. The air smelled different too, no longer cold, but alive. The kind of air that tastes like rain before it falls. Every few steps, I felt something slip away from me. A weight, a memory, a noise I didn't know I was still carrying. It wasn't painful. It was like watching dust drift off in sunlight, gentle, inevitable. I thought I'd feel empty, but I didn't. I felt lighter. For the first time, I looked up. Above me, the sky was opening soft streaks of gold and gray, stretching across endless blue. I hadn't noticed before how long I'd been walking with my head down, afraid to see what waited above me. The light didn't blind me, it welcomed me. It touched my skin like warmth that had been waiting for me to arrive. There were no signs, no markers, no end in sight. Just the path. And somehow, that was enough. I didn't need to know where it led. The journey itself had become the answer. Then, out of nowhere, I heard the faint sound of footsteps behind me. I turned, half expecting to see someone else following. But there was no one there. Only a trail of glowing prints fading slowly into the distance, to my own. I realized then that I hadn't been following someone else's path. I'd been creating my own all along. The figure beside me stopped. I stopped too. For a moment, we stood together in silence, facing the horizon where the light seemed to breathe. I didn't need to ask where we were going. I already knew it wasn't a place. It was a becoming. Then the figure spoke, its voice calm and steady. Like a thought spoken directly into my soul. Every step you take writes a story the world will never read, but you will feel it in every heartbeat. I looked down at the path, glowing faintly beneath my feet. For the first time, I smiled. I understood now that the journey wasn't about chasing something far away. It was about returning to what I'd always been running from, myself. So I kept walking not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And in that quiet, endless walk, I finally understood what it meant to follow. Not a voice, not a shadow, but a truth. The road narrowed as I walked deeper into the light. It wasn't blinding anymore, it was warm, like the sun after a long storm. But there was something strange about it too. The brighter it became, the harder it was to tell where the path ended and the sky began. It all started to blend together as if I was walking on air. Halfway between Earth and something greater, the figure had stopped ahead of me. It stood at the edge of what looked like the end of the world, a place where the ground simply faded into light. I slowed my steps, unsure if I was supposed to go any further. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The silence stretched, heavy but peaceful. Then the figure finally spoke, not with the same distant tone as before, but softly, like someone who'd been waiting to tell a truth too heavy for words. You've walked far enough to ask the right question. I frowned, breath unsteady. What question? The figure turned toward me, and though it had no face, I could feel its gaze settle on me, warm, knowing, gentle. The one you've been avoiding. The air trembled around us, rippling like water. Memories flickered through the light, every mistake, every loss, every version of me that had fallen and gotten back up. They hovered for a heartbeat, then vanished into the glow. I stepped closer. Who are you? The figure tilted its head the same way it had before, but this time it smiled, or maybe I just felt it smile. The air grew still. And then it answered, "You've known me since your first doubt, your first dream, your first choice. I am every version of you that dared to begin again." My heart stopped. The words sank into me like rain into dry soil. I wasn't following a stranger. I wasn't following some higher being or lost soul. I'd been following the part of myself that refused to give up the quiet. An unseen piece of me that kept walking even when I wanted to stop. For the first time, the figure began to fade, dissolving into the same light that surrounded us. Panic rose in my chest. "Wait, where are you going?" The voice answered gently, already part of the air. "I was never ahead of you. I was inside you. You've reached where I end, where you begin." I stood there, trembling, not from fear, but from understanding. The light wasn't swallowing meat, was becoming me. Every step, every doubt, every tear had all led here. As the last shimmer of the figure disappeared, I looked around and saw something I hadn't noticed before. There were countless other paths stretching into the horizon, glowing faintly, each one unique. I realized then that everyone has their own figure, their own voice, their own follow me, somewhere in the distance. I thought I heard the voice again, not calling me this time, but calling someone else. "Do you want to follow me?" I smiled quietly and whispered into the wind. "I already am," and I took one more step forward, not into darkness, not into light, but into myself. The silence that followed was unlike any I had ever known. It wasn't empty, it was full. Full of every heartbeat, every breath, every thought I had ever tried to quiet. The figure was gone now, but somehow I could still feel it, like the warmth that lingers after fire, or the echo that stays long after the sound has faded. The light around me began to dim, not into darkness, but into calm. The world slowly returned, the faint texture of the ground, the whisper of wind, the scent of earth after rain. Everything felt new, but familiar, like waking up in a room you'd forgotten was yours. I looked down and saw the path had split into two. Both roads shimmered faintly, stretching endlessly into the horizon. One looked easy as smooth, golden, glowing softly. The other was rough, uneven, twisting into shadow. My chest tightened. It was a choice. The kind that didn't come with signs or promises, only faith. A faint whisper stirred inside me. Not from around, but from within. You can stop here, or you can continue. The easy path looked peaceful, almost perfect, but something about it felt hollow, as if it promised comfort instead of growth. The rough one, dark and uncertain, pulsed faintly with the same rhythm as my heartbeat. I realized then peace without purpose isn't peace at all. It's sleep. My hands trembled as I took a breath. I wanted to turn away. I wanted to rest. But that same question echoed once more, not as a voice this time, but as a feeling that filled every corner of me. "Do you want to follow me?" Except now, it wasn't asking from outside. It was coming from within. From the part of me that had seen the darkness and still chosen light. From the part that had fallen and still decided to rise. I closed my eyes. The answer wasn't loud. It wasn't brave. It was small, but it was enough. Yes. The moment the word left my lips, the ground beneath me glowed. Not bright, not blinding, just real. Every stone, every crack, every shadow along the path lit up softly, as if saying, "We've been waiting for you." I stepped forward, barefoot now, feeling the texture of the world again. Each step hurt a little, but every pain carried purpose. I wasn't walking towards something anymore. I was walking as something as I moved. I felt the figure's presence again, ahead of me this time. Not behind, but within. Every breath I took was shared. Every beat of my heart matched a rhythm I finally understood. The light around me began to shift, forming faint shapes, memories, faces, moments I had buried. But this time, they didn't haunt me. They bowed gently, like old friends finally saying goodbye. The rough path curved upward, leading to a horizon washed in dawn. I paused one last time, looking back. There was no trace of the old me, no footsteps. No figure, only the stillness of a world that had watched me change, I whispered. Almost to the wind, "You don't have to lead anymore." And in that moment, a quiet truth settled over me. I was never meant to follow forever. I was meant to become the one who leads with that. I took one last breath of the old world and stepped into the new, one carrying no guide, no fear, and no shadow. Only the question that had started it all. And the answer that would carry me forward? The light had changed. It no longer glowed ahead like something to chase, shimmered around me, soft and gentle, wrapping the world in a quiet peace. The path beneath my feet had disappeared, yet somehow I was still walking. Maybe the journey never really ended, just stopped needing a road. The wind brushed against my skin, warm this time, carrying whispers that sounded almost like a heartbeat. The world wasn't silent anymore. It was alive. Every breath of air, every rustle of the unseen trees, every pulse in my chest had all moved in the same rhythm. The rhythm of belonging. I stopped walking and looked out into what seemed like forever. There was no horizon anymore, just space, infinite and calm. And for the first time, I didn't feel small standing before it. I felt part of it. I realized then that following had never been about reaching someone or somewhere. It was about returning to myself, piece by piece, step by step. The voice that once guided me spoke again, faint but clear, as if echoing from inside my bones. You were never lost. You were only learning to listen. I smiled softly, quietly, because I finally understood. Every silence, every shadow, every painful step had been a conversation. The figure, the question, the journey, they were never separate from me. They were me. The sky above shifted colors, gold melting into rose, rose fading into silver. The kind of light that feels like an ending and a beginning at the same time. I stood there, breathing it in, and it felt like forgiveness. Not from anyone else, but from myself. Somewhere in that stillness, I heard the question again, fainter now, distant, reaching out to another lost soul somewhere far away. Do you want to follow me? And I smiled, knowing how that question feels the first time you hear it. The fear, the pull, the unknown. I wanted to whisper through the wind to whoever was listening, say yes. Even if your voice shakes, say yes. The light grew brighter, but it didn't blind me, it became me. My outline blurred, my breath slowed, and I felt myself dissolving into something larger, something endless. Not vanishing, becoming. Becoming the whisper, the path, the guide for someone else who would one day ask the same question I once feared.